Good morning. Welcome to the courtyard of Christ Episcopal Church. I'm Stephen McHale, the priest here, with my friend Jacob Sampson, a parishioner here at Christ Church, a very faithful volunteer at our food pantry, and an all-around good person. And we are here today to ask Jake a number of questions. But first of all, Jacob, I want to know if you can explain why the Detroit Lions are just 2-3, while the Seattle Seahawks are 5-0.
I have no idea. I think they need to change the whole team.
They need to change the whole team.
The team needs to be changed, and it's like they've been on with the same quarterback, and they need a whole revamp of everything.
Sounds kind of like America right now.
Yeah. It does.
Jacob, you come from Detroit.
Well, I come from both places, Jackson, Michigan, which is south of Detroit. And my family moved to Detroit when I was about in my early 3 or 4. So we lived there in a place called Inkster, Michigan, right outside of Detroit, Michigan. But let me go back to say where I lived.
Yeah.
We lived in a parking lot of the Moose Lodge in 2 bedrooms with 5 people. And it was given to us, well, it wasn't given to us, we had to pay rent, but it was what they gave the soldiers when they got out of the military in the Second World War. They really didn't give the black soldiers anything.
Right.
That's where we lived at. Until, I was born, my sisters, and by that time it was 3 of us. Then we moved to Detroit, where Henry Ford had set up this community, and we got a house.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like the first black community outside of Inkster, Michigan. So Henry Ford had set this place up for all, people. It was a lot of football players from the Montreal Alouettes were there, and a lot of basketball players. And my family just happened, we got a home there. Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Until, since they never gave the soldiers who fought hard fighting, but my dad was at Omaha Beach, never gave him any kind of therapy. So he could not keep a job.
Oh my.
He couldn't he couldn't sit still, And so my mother, we left there at this nice home and moved back to Jackson. We did that about 6 or 7 times, back and forth, until it just finally ended in Jackson.
Do you think any of that explains why you became a blues musician for your vocation?
It is. I had the blues.
You had the blues?
I had the blues riding up and down the highway, And, the strangest thing is that my family, my brothers and sisters, we kind of didn't know what was going on. We were there for the ride. We're going to see Aunt Rena in Jackson. Oh, we're leaving now and we're coming back,
Wow.
Back and forth. And music, later on in the years, I realized, now I have a picture with me and my dad and B.B. King, in 1965, at the Flame Show Bar in Detroit. So I think a lot of it did come from that. My dad was a great music lover. That took it kind of sets in your soul where you're going to go.
Can you tell us a little bit about your career in the blues?
My career in the blues started back. First, I was a rock and roll player in the early 70s, and traveled in the South. And then, as I started coming towards the West, stopped in Chicago, and that's where it started. So went to the checkerboard in 1970, and there was probably all the blues players were alive then, and I got to see them. And I would just go and wander around Chicago to different clubs, I wandered into this one club, and these guys were playing, and I sat at the bar. I just lost my job at this band, and the guy goes, "Okay, what's wrong with you, son?" I go, "Well, I just lost my job, as the bass player in this band. He goes, "So why are you sitting here?" And I go, "Well, I don't know where to go." And he gave me this book. He goes, "You know who's in this bar?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'm gonna give you this book." It was Eddie Calhoun, who was Earl Garner's piano player, the bass player for 25 years. I'm talking to a legend. And in the club was Eddie Harris and a bunch of other jazz musicians. He said, "You can't get sympathy from us. The only thing we can tell you is you gotta get out there and find you a job." So as I walked around, I started playing, playing the blues and loving it and understanding it. The thing about the blues is that you have to understand where you're coming from with it. You have to be a person of knowledge of what you're playing. Then as you play, it's like a flower. You understand why black people were singing like they were. You understand why there's so much pain in the blues, Then there's happiness, But it's also a music that's historic, The music is something that will never leave. I don't care how old you are, You can be a rapper, but you can't be a rapper for 80 years. But you can play the blues until you're 100 years old,
Right.
And I chose this music because it's the music that I felt. It's the music that I could sing. It was all coming from a different place. I'm not your big theory musician in jazz, but I learned how to write music by myself. And I learned to sing by myself. I never thought I could sing until other people tell you, "Oh, you have a great voice." Okay, if you say so. But I just kept growing with it. And then I came to California, said I wanted to get a record contract. And I wound up getting one, and then I got another one, and then I got one called Storyville in Copenhagen. So I went, played with that, and I moved over to Europe. Yeah, lived in Belgium for a while, played music in Belgium, came back, couldn't find a job. I could not find, I was working like mad over in Belgium until 9/11, until they kicked all of us out.
Wow.
They kicked all of us out of Belgium, all the black musicians that were there. You couldn't stay in Belgium no more, you had to go. You had to get out of the country. And so I said, well, I guess I gotta go, and packed up all my stuff, and couldn't catch the plane out of there, so I had to catch the plane out of Heathrow at that time. So I'm walking through the airport, nice long black leather coat on, gig bag, and they snatch me and search me. I'm going like, what the? They take my clothes off, they take my guitar off, they take the screws out of it. It was bad, and I'm going like, well, they said, well, everybody's a suspect. And I'm going like, well, there's thousands of people out there, and I'm going like, you just had to take me, Then I finally get on the plane, fly into LAX, and I was searched 3 times before I could get out to catch the plane to San Francisco.
Wow.
Yes, it's a long journey why I got the blues.
So you used that phrase of theirs, everyone's a suspect.
Yeah.
So along those lines, can you tell me a little bit about what it feels like to be a black man in America in 2020, in this cauldron that we all seem to be living through?
A black man today, I was telling you, has a big target on his back. We are suspects, and we haven't done anything. We're black men who have struggled with racism and trying to get through life. Black men right now don't know what to do, because if you defend yourself, you're going to jail. If you say anything derogatory to the police, you're going to jail. It's like we can't defend ourselves without something happening to us.
Right.
So, as a black man today, we are very cautious. We're walking around on pins and needles because, we can get stopped. It's really hard to live like that. It's very tense.
It must be tiring.
It is tiresome. You know, the thing is, you get up in the morning and you go like, okay, you know, I got a good day start, but in the back of your mind, you got that thought about getting stopped by the police for anything. You know, it reminds me of the apartheid. The apartheid, the police will stop you and they would shoot you and do what they wanted to. You know, it's really something that's been with me since I was 5 years old. I go back to racism with my mother and I. It was the first time I ever thought about any kind of racism. We saw, my mother had a Jet magazine and she opened it up and we were looking at Emmett Till. And she kind of just squeezed me. She didn't say anything. She just squeezed me. And we were looking at that picture and I was going like, man, what happened, you know? But then again, as you go along, as a black man, you go along and different things happen. As we go through the years, it never leaves us alone. It seems like it follows through our whole life, you know, up until I'm 70 years old. And I still feel it. Man, I feel it more intense now than I did when I was a teenager, and that was in the 70s.
Do you think you feel it more because you're more aware, or because the times have changed?
No, the times I'm aware and the times have not changed. The times are still the same as when I was 20 or 17. Because I was in the middle of the Detroit Riots in 1967, you know. And people think that was over Martin Luther King, and it wasn't over. That was about a shooting. You know, how police were treating black people in the black community. They would just go and beat us up, you know, and beat women up, and then it exploded. And it just went on from there.
So, at the risk of asking a much too broad question, what's the way forward? How does this nation reconcile and heal?
That's a good question. It all depends on this election.
It all depends on what?
The election.
The election.
And it could go either way. It's a hard question how it's going to. You know, they've been answering that question since I was 17. And we're still in the same spot. I keep telling people time's up. There are no more questions. There is no more answers. We went through the 60s where they were burning buses and beating up people, suppressing votes, you know, and in the South and in the North, we got it. And it's, you know, racism is a hard thing to get rid of.
Does this moment feel any different to you? Do you have reason for more hope that change may come?
I think there is hope, but it feels more intense. It feels more intense, more than it did in '67, and more than it did in '68. You know, we got a president who is in as a white supremacist, and he's calling for this stuff to happen. It's like somebody's trying to pick a fight with him. So we're not going for the whole bait. You know, he's baiting us to come in and fight. And it's hard, you know, to keep doing stuff to people until they get tired. And that's what I'm scared of. When we get tired, all the stuff that's happened to us over the years, time's up. I don't know what else is going to, you know. What else are you going to do? You know?
So, to bring us closer to home, we're here at an Episcopal church, which has traditionally been kind of ghostly white. And you got baptized here a few years back.
Yes, I did.
And we see you on many Sunday mornings and volunteering. I see you even have your food pantry hat on up there.
Right.
What does it feel like to come into a traditionally white, stuffy, upper crust church, given your background?
Um, at first, I didn't. When I came to you, and we talked, and I said, I come from a Baptist church, and I didn't feel, I didn't feel like I had connected with people, and I wanted to be in a place where I could feel what I was, my religion, and so I was going like, well, why not, you know? So when I first got here, I was like kind of nervous, people were like, who is he? We know how people in churches are, they go, who is he, and why is he here? And then
Wait, I want to go back up there. You know how people in churches are. I think I know what you're saying, but can you make that more explicit?
Well, they look at you like, why is he here?
Uh-huh.
Is this what's going to happen? Is our church turning to this? And I showed up again and again. And by the third or fourth time, when we get up and we, peace unto you, I started meeting people.
Mm-hmm.
That pantry, the food pantry, was a very big part of me coming to this church. I found out were people, real people, they love you, they respect you, and we all kind of had this one thing in common, and that was helping people. So I was like, wow, this is what I'm looking for. This is where I need to be at, So as I come here, it just seems to get easier and easier. See, I think God puts you in places where you are supposed to feel at ease. Not some place where you're supposed to struggle all the time to find your own religion. When I got here, I felt uncomfortable, but just hang on. It gets better.
So to draw these two threads of our conversation together, what advice do you have, Jake, for an old institution like this? How can we be better at including people of different backgrounds and different ideas and different races under one roof?
I think you're doing a great job. I think it needs to be, we all have to look at each other right now, Sunday can't be the most segregated day of the year anymore, or time of the week. We all understand. And coming from an all black church here, this is what I'm talking about. We have to understand each other's background and cultures. We all have to understand that we are in all religion, and this church, to me, has fulfilled all of that.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I feel like we have a ways to go.
Yes, we all do.
And we can open our hearts and listen to your advice, I hope.
Yeah. Well, here's the conversation we all needed, the conversation that we have. Most white people don't know about a lot of black people. They know black people, but they don't know about us, And one thing that I'm happy is that we're sitting here having a conversation. You want to know where I come here every Sunday, but it's good to know where I came from, and it's like I can tell you, I'm 7 years old, and think from 1955 on here, we haven't changed. One thing has changed is that we all now are trying to find a conversation. We all are together in this because we need, it's only one way we're going to stop this stuff is that we all understand each other.
Right. Well, on that note, finding the conversation, let's let this one be today, but I want to encourage all of you folks out there to find a conversation with folks who come from a different place than you do. Jacob, I want to thank you for answering some uncomfortable questions and taking the time to get together. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I miss the church. I miss Sunday. I miss the pantry. I'm missing a lot of stuff.
I do too.
You know.
God bless you, Jake. God bless you, people. Talk to you soon.